Now, while pulling grains is the most accurate means of marking your grain line when you're preparing to drape, in the interest of time, there are other methods for marking your grain line. And I'm going to show you those two methods right now. When you're pulling grains, you can work on fabric that has not yet been blocked. But for these two methods, you must work on blocked fabric. So be sure you've watched that video for how to block your fabric. As you can see, mine has already gone to the ironing board and I've already blocked it out as best I can for this demonstration. And when you're working on draping, I highly recommend using an HB Ticonderoga pencil, regular old pencil. Get yourself a pencil sharpener. I have a variety of pencil sharpeners. It's just part of the process of working in any industry. You tend to collect a lot of doodads. Please avoid using mechanical pencils when you're working on the muslin fabric or any fabrics. Mechanical pencils tend to snag when you're drawing on the fabric, so I highly recommend getting one of these old-fashioned Ticonderoga HB pencils. I'm going to sharpen my pencil. You want to make sure you have a nice sharp point on your pencil for these methods. The first method for marking your grain line, just use your selvage. We know that the grain line should be parallel to the selvage, so you can just use your selvage edge. I've clipped mine because you may notice with this medium weight muslin and with some other fabrics, the selvage edge is a little bit tighter weave, and it can sometimes cause your fabric to kind of pucker and pull near the edges ever so slightly. So I've clipped into the edge with a pair of scissors just to release some of that tension. Just be careful when you're blocking out the fabric that you don't tug these too far that you start ripping into your fabric. I'm going to take my selvage edge and I'm going to measure about 2 inches in from the selvage edge and give myself a mark. I'll do the same down here and then connect those two marks. I can also use my ruler to my advantage and make sure it's properly lined up along the selvage edge of my fabric. Again, this will only work on fabric that has already been blocked. If you have not blocked your fabric, you haven't squared it up properly, your lines are going to go all over the place. This is why this method is not quite as accurate as pulling the grains, because you're working with, you have to make sure your fabric is blocked. The next method I'm going to show you will take some practice, but I highly recommend that you try it because this method is more accurate than what I've just shown you. This works so long as your fabric is properly blocked and you're very careful about the blocking process. But if for some reason something happens and it's not quite blocked as well as it should be, this line may not be accurate. It may not sit on the grain line. So this next method is much more accurate in that it rests the point of the pencil, which is why it's important you have a good pencil sharpener and you get a nice sharp point on your pencil. Essentially what we're doing is placing the tip of the pencil in between the fibers of the fabric. And then we place that pencil in between those fibers and I'm gonna pull my fabric in one direction. I'm gonna scoot my work over here just so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll do this a few times and I'll zoom in so you can see it. Now I'm just placing my pencil down on the fabric. I don't have to get in close to figure out where the grains of the fabric is. I have a sharpened pencil and the sharp tip of that pencil will just naturally settle into the grooves of the fibers. I'm going to hold my pencil steady with my right hand. I am right hand dominant, so I'm going to hold it with my right hand. Obviously, if you're a left hand dominant, you would do the opposite. So I'm going to hold this pencil in place, not putting too much pressure on it, but I don't want the pencil to move. This is similar to those little party tricks where someone would put glasses all over a table and then rip the tablecloth out from underneath and the glasses stay in the same place. Similar principle. I'm keeping my pencil in one place. I'm going to pinch my fabric with my left hand and drag the fabric underneath that pencil. My pencil should not have moved. If it does, it shouldn't go very far, but you'll find I have a nice, clean, straight line. And this is far more accurate than measuring and marking with a ruler, because this also assumes the grains of the fabric. It forces the tip of the pencil to ride in between nestle in between the grains of the fabric. So this is far more accurate. But again, that takes practice. I'll show you one more time and I'll zoom in so you can see a little bit better what's going on. There is my pencil tip. I'll grab the edge of my fabric here. There's my pencil tip. Just setting it right on the fabric. I don't have any particular place that I'm putting it right now. I'm going to let the sharpened tip of my pencil do the work for me. And it is very important that when you're doing a method like this with your pencil, that you have a sharp tip to your pencil. If your pencil is not sharp, this will not work. So I put my pencil tip down. I'm going to pinch my fabric in my left hand. I'm not resting my palm down. I need to make sure that I can slide this fabric out. So my right palm is up. I'm just holding the tip of the pencil in place, and I'm going to slide the fabric underneath it. You can see a few pieces have come loose there, but there is my newly established grain line. So this technique is very, very accurate, but it takes practice. It's not difficult, but it does take practice. Now, let's say you don't have a pencil like this. Let's say you try it with a mechanical pencil. Maybe the mechanical pencil is snagging. If you don't have a Ticonderoga pencil, you can also use a sewing pin. This will also work. The only issue with this is you won't have a mark on your fabric that you can then use for transferring and truing later, but this can work in a pinch. I've just got a regular sewing pin, a ball head quilter's pin. Make sure you're using a good ball head quilter's pin, or if all you have on hand are your flathead silk pins, you can use these as well. I prefer the ball head quilter's pins because it gives me something to grip onto. And you do the exact same technique. Place the pin on your fabric. I use the tip of my finger to push down on the tip of the pin so it doesn't go anywhere. Again, my right hand, the palm is not down on my right hand. I'll do this up here since we've already marked down there. Pushing down the tip of the pin, pinching the fabric with my left hand, and then sliding the fabric underneath that pin. That didn't work out too well for me. My line is going way up over here. I can see that this is not properly aligned. So again, this kind of technique takes practice. And as you can see, I don't use this very often. I haven't been practicing. I more often like to use my pencil because then I have a mark to go off of when I'm working. Let me try that one more time. I'm gonna hold this down. You should not see my hand move from this general area when I'm doing that, my right hand. That worked out a little bit better. That's much more accurate. And you can see how one crease, that's the one I just did. Now the first one I did kind of diverts off course. So again, if you're going to use these techniques, please, please, please be careful because they do take practice. Let me zoom in so you can see that pin method one more time. All right, here's my sewing pin. Just going to pinch this here. And I've got the tip of the pin right here. I'm going to hold it down with the tip of my pointer finger, pinch my fabric, slide the fabric underneath the pin. I could feel this start to divert as I was pulling it. So again, it takes practice. I could feel this line was not working. And you can see when I zoom out, it also went a little bit wonky here at the end here. It went up over on the edge here. So again, these take practice, but it's a much faster method of marking your grain lines. So you now have 3 different techniques that you can use to mark your grain lines on your fabric. Just remember, if you're using these techniques of either drawing parallel lines to your selvage or pulling the fabric underneath a sharpened pencil or the tip of a pin, make sure you've blocked your fabric to begin with. You may want to go back and block it a second time after you've marked your grains.